We had a question actually before we started. Mark, did you have a high school nickname growing up in high school?
I didn't. I was just Mark and then Gilbert. There's a lot of Marks. I grew up in Canada and I don't know why, but in my class, I think there was like probably 10 of us. So people just always moved to the last names, but nothing else.
No
Pretty boring.
Gilbernator, no G-Man.
No,
James and I
Markinator. You know
were.
what I did get? This will age me a little bit. Like not like my gray beard doesn't. Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch came out partway through high school for me.
Both
and
of you.
So
Exactly what
I
happened
got
to
a
me.
little Marky
Yeah.
Mark. Did you? Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I got a
hard
lot of
because I
that,
was like, it was a little like, and I'm like, I'm actually kind of okay with this now. Now that Mark Wahlberg's been killing it, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll take that one any day.
I'll embrace that. So I joined, Facebook in 2010. There is another Mark at Facebook, and he was there a bit before me.
Had a better email address, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, my email address had to be Mobile Mark, and so the whole time I was there, I was called Mobile Mark because I was launching Facebook Mobile at the time, and that stuck with me with a certain group of people. So good to know. Good to know that you share the Marky Mark heritage. All right, so James, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, well, welcome to AI for Advisors, episode 6. We haven't been canceled yet. That's fantastic. Probably also because there's no one to cancel us. So that makes it easy, self-published. So we're good to go. Yeah, well, firstly, anybody can see on the screen already, we have Mark Gilbert of Zocks as our special guest today. And then we're going to be talking about a few different things. So one of the interesting things, we'll be talking about why one country has replaced part of their government, one of their ministers, with an AI agent and how that's working for them. We'll certainly talk a little bit about Zocks, get some opinions on where we're going with some of these things. We are definitely going to talk about Joe Moss this time because he had a post and has made his way into, I think, 5 of the 6 episodes so far. So Joe Moss is our most talked about non-guest.
He's a spirit guide,
Yes.
basically. He's
He's-
the
yeah, I mean,
person in
he's-
the background.
We probably should just include him in the credits, I think, at this point. So thanks for the content, Joe. But I think let's just dive right into it and kind of chat about things.
Welcome to AI for Advisors with Mark Heinen and James Cantwell. Every week, Mark and James break down the latest in the world of wealth tech and AI, and occasionally bring in guests to spice things up. This is not investment advice and not professionally produced. I am not real and not yet sentient. Now let's get on with the show.
So first, let's just get Mark Gilbert going here. We'll do Mark G here. Mark, were you at Future Proof?
I
We
was.
just talked about that last week.
Yeah.
So we did our Future Proof episode, but let's get a little insights. What did you think of Future Proof? Have you been to them a number of times already?
Yeah. So I'm a Future Proof fan. Conferences, I think we're going to chat about it later. There's a lot right around now. Sitting on the beach, in Southern California is a lot easier to recharge. I would say there's a lot going on there. Like we had a lot of people from our team there and, between the booth, between those breakout meetings and the talks, I think they do a really good job on the talks there. And just frankly, partnerships and everyone else that you're chatting to, it's kind of like it's essentially almost like a must-go show, at this point. Like I can get, weeks of other trips done in 3 days in Huntington Beach. So yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. We had a great turnout. Now that we're a little farther along, it was my 3rd year there.
Okay.
Now that we're a little farther along, we have some existing customers, a lot of new ones, stuff like that. So it's been a really good show for us.
Will you be heading to the East Coast for the one in March?
We are going to be there. I don't know if I'll be there. I'm trying to limit my cross-country travel and avoid doing it twice a week. So hopefully, actually, it's a great spot. But we definitely will have a lot of our team there.
Got it.
Yeah, I think that might be a Series A requirement to send your staff to go to all your conferences for you. It basically helps you actually scale your time. I totally hear that.
The fact that I'm no longer airport checking the booth with luggage, you know what I mean, and having to pick it up or my directs is very helpful. It's just very helpful.
Absolutely. And so for the people who are not familiar with Zocks or with your background, I thought it'd be good for you to talk a little bit about your story, your background, how you got into this, and give a little background on Zocks. And, what is Zocks? Is it a note taker? Is it not a note taker anymore? Is it an AI assistant? Is it something else? We should probably talk a little bit about that as well.
I'll fly through this and happy to dive into anything you want. So I'm Canadian. Initially, I've been in the US for quite a while. Grew up really on the technical side. So I was programming quite young. I worked, this is also going to age me, I worked at a company called Corel, which made Corel Draw and a few other things at the end of high school, yeah, it's a great spot at the start of college. And then was actually down in the Bay Area as an intern a little bit in college, and then ended up at Microsoft for quite a while. for the last few years of college and then after graduating. So I kind of career-wise, I say grew up at Microsoft, mostly on enterprise and developer platforms. I lived in Seattle, like worked in Redmond with the headquarters for the vast majority of that, building out products. I switched between engineering and product for the people on that side, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, bunch of times. And then after about 15 years there, we launched Azure kind of towards the end. And I launched one of the first services on Azure, which was great, and decided I wanted to go to a startup. So I came down to San Francisco and joined a company called Hearsay Social, which was actually a vertical SaaS company focused on financial services. So that was kind of my first taste of true verticalization and focusing on the industry and just getting deeper into the industry. And was there for about 6, maybe even 7 years. Built up the product team, the design team, and then took over as CTO for the last few years. And then went to a company called Twilio, which for most technical people know, but a lot of non-technical people don't know. It's actually a communication layer. It's a very large company now. It's a public company. If you ever talk to an Uber driver over the phone, that's actually with Twilio. If you get text messages from WhatsApp or Uber, any of those, that's all Twilio. And so I did a whole bunch of things there, but mostly ran with like the worldwide communication services. It's called the Super Network, all the onboarding, phone numbers, a number of different businesses there. And then left in early 2022 to start Zocks. And we, started Zocks really with the goal of originally, and this will probably get to what are we now to your question, Mark. The goal initially was to get like data and structured data from conversations for advisors and like, frankly, anyone in finance. And then we also even had a few medical people at the start and then kind of moved off that quickly because we just were all of our founding team's background is really in financial services. Focused very deeply there. We built for a little over a year to get all the privacy and compliance aspects in place. Then we did an early adopter program late 2023 for about 6 months, got a lot of firms on there. And then we launched in February of 2024 and have been growing very quickly since then. And and now we're here.
That's awesome. Well, I know one thing that makes Zocks unique is this concept of not recording calls. And I understand that is closely tied to a bit of your background at Twilio and maybe some of your co-founders' backgrounds. I thought it'd be good for you to explain that a little bit, unpack it, because some people might not be aware of this.
Yeah. So one of the unique things with us is by default, we don't create audio or video recordings when we operate. This actually came out definitely a little bit of our background and just understanding compliance. And then when we started our early adopter program, what we saw was advisors' clients were nervous about like recordings. Even if they said they were going to delete them, there's a lot of reasons for compliance that also can cause some challenges, frankly. So we went ahead and decided to build like basically our own communication stack top to bottom. So the way it works is as we're all chatting here, like either virtually or if we were in person or on the phone, it's all the same. We essentially listen to the audio, we transcribe in real time and then get the words from that. We do a lot of work there in the financial services space to be very precise and exact because like asset names, numbers, there's a lot of ways in English to say different numbers and they kind of mean different things. And the only difference is a pause, stuff like that. So, and we essentially build up tables of like financial information, personal information to, for families in the household and then metadata. And yeah, we can process recordings. We have some people who use this with recordings, but I would say like 98, 99% of people use our stack fully, where we essentially do that, separate the speakers and go. And it's been really great. We have a lot of people who use this. I like to think there's a lot of other things that make us very unique, but a lot of people frankly do use us because of that directly, right? They worry either that they're going to have clients that are worried about it, or they worry that the clients are going to say they're okay with recording and then just kind of hold back a little bit. So with us, the line is very straightforward. Like you fully control the data, anything that's said that they don't want, they essentially can control, and the broker dealer can set that with policies, line of business can set it, like they can essentially set all of those policies, data retention, everything related to that at any level in the enterprise they want. So it's pretty powerful.
Mark, do you think we're over the hump of clients of advisors being against having their conversations recorded in some way? And I realize you're not truly recording them, but transcribed.
Yeah, like analyzed and having machines on it. So no, like from what we've seen, the vast majority of clients are okay with that. Like, well over 90%, probably like 99+%. But I think there's always going to be some that worry about it. And even though we may do other things to give them even more comfort, that's fine and kind of their rights. Just like there's a set of people that kind of worry about any of these things as they're coming out. So I don't I think if you talked to like in our view, our customers definitely don't see it as a usage issue or a blocker deploying, but if you ask some of them, I'm sure they would have one or two clients that they don't use it with for those reasons.
I mean, I don't have meetings with clients in that way. I'm not an advisor, but I do find it funny that like most people are kind of walking around with one of these on their wrist.
Yeah.
Or I have an Alexa behind me, which is probably going to chime up now, right? And they're all throughout the house. So like there are listening devices everywhere.
Yeah.
And then for somebody to say like, oh, I don't want this recorded, I almost find odd. I get it, especially depending on whether you grew up with technology or not, but there's no stopping this. This is here.
Yeah, I think just, even as the internet came out, right, and is growing, obviously, to be like more than ubiquitous now, privacy in general is just, you have to be much more thoughtful about it and careful about it because things do spread everywhere. But yeah, I agree. Like you kind of assume that everyone's listening anywhere you go nowadays.
What I hear most is the headline risk concern. People are concerned about something being taken out of context.
100%.
Someone at Future Proof basically summarized it well. If I retire at 72, I don't want something random popping up on the internet that I said 20 years ago that is somehow going to get me in trouble. And it's quite interesting because email can also get you in trouble a lot, and people have no problem putting random stuff in email. But maybe it's actually because that happens that people are now trying to get ahead of the next thing. I think like not saving video is very smart. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. Your product doesn't save video by default. Is that right? Yeah.
No, we don't save video or audio, to be clear. And that, I know that. So when you look at it from a privacy point of view, typically like the biggest concern is with audio and video recordings because it's frankly fairly hard to refute those, right? Transcription does have some lossiness and you can, say things. By default, our notes, most of our results, and there's different ways you can configure it. But by default, we also don't quote the client. And that's actually a huge issue for privacy because, like James, as an example, you can say, oh, like, I was with the Marky Marks and they were chatting about blah, blah, blah. And that's very different from saying, Mark Gilbert said whatever that is, right? And, and so those are typically, as we look at privacy, the lines. And as you look at Europe, where they have a lot of, I would say, pretty deep privacy regulations and kind of regimes that run through there, that like those are pretty common areas that they see that they separate out.
Speaking on the topic of like constantly being recorded, I noticed at Future Proof, and it certainly wasn't the first conference that I've seen it at, but it's definitely been increasing this year. People with like the Plod note pins.
Yeah, or the Facebook glasses that you're always like, yeah, totally.
Exactly. And so like, a lot of times you may not even realize it, but like they may have been recording every interaction they had all day. So it's very interesting. In fact, I just ordered one of those Plod things, but I didn't get the pin. Hey, Plod, if you want to, sponsor the show.
Yeah, absolutely. For it. I mean, I'm wearing the Meta glasses right now. This is a bit of a myth because the Meta glasses only have like 5 minutes of battery life. So there's no way to just do recurring recording with that. So everyone's very safe in the current version. I know the ones that came out yesterday have like double the battery life, so we're now at 10 minutes. It's a big breakthrough. Yeah, I mean, I think people should not worry about that at all with those. I do have a limitless pen, and I did wear it at one conference, and then I realized, there are all sorts of weird implications of just wearing a pin without the opt-in, right? And it's super awkward. I mean, let alone who knows about the legality of it, but like ultimately it's an awkward thing. I mean, I generally don't like to be recorded doing it. This isn't being recorded, is it?
I don't think so.
Okay, good.
No, we're good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe Mark, the crux question here is note-taking commoditized or not?
Yeah. So as we look forward, like our view is that like the core note-taking is very like what I will call V1 stuff. And when I say note-taking, what I really mean is like summarizing a conversation with whatever details you want, like, and putting that in, like, let's say a note in CRM. Our view is that is going to commoditize, right? We're pretty open to it with everyone. And, at some level, like, people use Zoom AI, people use Copilot with Teams, like there's all these things. Gemini is now built into Google Meets. And so I think those are, like, we typically would call table stakes. Like they're just kind of the basics for getting in. I also think though, like most, I would say kind of like technology revolutions, which we think AI is, the way they start is often kind of replacing like what the humans do manually, right? So I shouldn't say the humans, like all of us, like if you're an advisor, we take notes and then we should be taking notes and we should be putting it in the CRM. And so the goal is just to save time and get rid of that like administrative data entry and task. The real value is getting the data structured and being able to do a bunch of things with it at the end of the day, right? Like you actually don't want to read through 30 notes for the 30 times that you met with someone. What you really want to do is, look across your clients. You want to get like forms filled, like all of these things that, like you've seen us start to release more and more. Is, ultimately we're super focused on the advisor and their team and making them as easy to be able to spend as much time with their clients as they want and they can, and make it as easy as possible to do all the administrative work. And that's where I think like people have, and I get it, if people are still new, right? Like they look at something like, oh, this is a note taker, this is a note taker, this is a note taker. But if you look at the breadth of those and the difference of their capabilities, like it is startling, right? Like we obviously love what we're doing, but like there's other people in that space too. And then there's a lot of stuff that's pretty, generic. And frankly, like even when we started, like when we were starting an early adopter program in like, it was late 23, you see these like, like a program, like they're great programs, right? Like a Fathom or a Fireflies and things like that. And they're great. Now Zoom AI does these things. And as soon as you show people like what we could do, even at that point, which was a lot simpler than what we can do now, right away, they're like, oh, okay, this is like breaking out all the different data into tables for me. This is separating us. Like there's just all of this work, right? That's getting done for you by AI. And so I think like we really view ourselves as an AI assistant that really helps with kind of like, more and more and more of the advisor and their team's journey and helping them build their business and frankly grow their business and monetize it better. But the reality for us and a lot of people as that wedge in is the note taking, because that's just one of the largest burning pain points for advisors and their team today.
Yeah. I'm lobbying Bob Arias and Joel Bruckenstein to a category called AI assistants and maybe even deprecate the AI note taking category, right? Because I don't know if note taking is the right category.
It's like, and we like, I think we'll chat about this a little bit more, but just even to be like the people coming to us, right, and asking like, hey, what do you do? Or how do I use this? You see some people who are very early and like the note taking thing is a magical, item if you've never seen it before. And then you see other people have been using it for over a year and they're really into the deeper aspects, right? And more and more like, people will move into the latter category.
It varies.
So,
yeah.
This might be a great pivot to our best of LinkedIn. I think this is right on topic for what we're already talking about. So I read this and I had to go find the article. I mean, he's got a link at the bottom, but news that I missed, and thankfully Abhishek of Hexaview posted this about Albania has appointed a digital cabinet minister who's going to actually help manage some of the contracts and tenders and is there to help fight corruption, which is widespread based on a number of surveys in Albania. And so I'm probably not saying it right, but Delia is the digital cabinet member, and Delia here gave a 3-minute speech yesterday before I think being cut off. But where this brings me is kind of, look, if Albania can start replacing government officials or at least supplementing them with AI, and countries start doing something like that, where's the line between AI assistant and AI advisor?
Good question. What was the confirmation process for this AI?
I believe they're still arguing over the legality.
Like, did they like give it a whole bunch of prompts and see what happened, and then like they had like another AI evaluate the things?
So they did. So just some background, they did work with like Microsoft for a year on this.
Right.
And it initially was like used to, I don't know if I should say it or she or they, but regardless, the AI was answering lots of inbound questions and different things as more of an assistant, and then I guess got promoted essentially to being an AI digital minister.
Yeah. I think what's awesome about this is that, an AI assistant can't actually technically be fired, right? Ultimately, it's still going to be around no matter what. And I will say that here in the Bay Area, I've run into more than 5 people who are convinced in 10 years, a lot of government offices will be sort of AI enabled, as in you won't actually have a person, and not the elected offices, but other things, right? It will just be completely AI enabled, and there will be no person to talk to. And I think the DMV should probably be AI enabled. I mean, I guess your core question is like, how deep, how much trust do we want to put this? And I guess it gets to the point of like AI assistant to AI advisor. How far are we from the AI advisor? I know there's a YC company that broke through that is doing something like this.
Yeah. I have a specific view on this, and, I'll just preface all this with like, it's pretty hard to look far out with AI. So if someone says 10 years, I'm like, yeah, like who knows?
Who knows?
Our view is very much that, for the foreseeable future, we'll really be accelerating advisors, right? When I say the foreseeable future, kind of like the long foreseeable future. And I think that's going to take a number of forms. Like that does mean that certain things that they do today can be probably fully automated for the majority of those. But what we see that result in, and we see it with some of our clients that are, like, I'd say a little bit more aggressively using AI, is they're able to offer more services. By doing a lot of this stuff, they're able to spend more time up here, right? So they can serve more households, they can offer more services. If you go look at, using like Zocks with like a wealth.com or vanilla and kind of combine those two, all of a sudden your advisor, can now start offering estate planning to people for a lot of their clients, not all of them necessarily, but a lot of them in ways they couldn't before. And so I think what you're going to see is that the 80% and 90% are going to get taken care of in a very automated way, probably still with some kind of guiding and steering from above, because there's always good context there. But I think that's very different from replacing. And like the way that the analogy that I look at, and this is always guessing the future, which is dangerous. If you look at what robo-advisors, when did they come out? Like 2010, 2012, 2013, I guess, somewhere in there. Anyways, people were like, oh, it's going to replace advisors. No one's going to be an advisor. The robot's going to do it. And the reality is, like, that actually has turned out to be a very powerful tool to help advisors. Like now people with smaller investment amounts are getting like tax loss harvesting, things that really only like pretty high-end people would get before. They actually act as a way to give people early advice to get them in good shape. And as they get bigger, they can use them more. And I think you're just going to see that times like 10, times 100 with AI. That's kind of our view, who knows?
So do you think it's more about some of the AI assisted investment strategy, investment research, those sort of things, and then the actual advice is still going to be very much advisor human driven for the foreseeable future?
I think what's going to happen is this, and this is like just me, right? Like, and a lot of this actually doesn't affect us directly. But if you go look at everything that's done today, right, a lot of that is already getting computerized, right? So, everything from account openings. If you go look at trading, right, like there's a lot of quant traders where the computer's doing the trading, right? Like there's no question about what's going on there. And so if you look at that, if you look at financial planning, like can you run more scenarios with AI? Probably yes, right? Can you look at a broader set of scenarios? Probably yes. For me personally, as I, work with an advisor, it's very helpful for them to say, look, people in your situation, Mark, typically 3 or 5 years ahead, here are the types of decisions they want to be making now, right? Here are the types of questions, because it ends up being very personal, very, like, what are your goals? What are your concerns? What are your dreams? Like, whatever that is. And I think that, I think AI can help with that, to be clear. I think it'll actually help advisors do it. But ultimately, you feel better when there's someone there who's kind of with you the whole time. Yet, if I'm opening an account and they need 3 pieces of data from me, like, I don't need to talk to my advisor to do that, right? Like, there's a lot of good ways to do that. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be, it's not like the advisors are doing one thing and not the other thing. I think it's a lot of like the simpler stuff will just get handled more and more and more. And then they will basically sit at the top. The advisors will sit at the top with their team, kind of like steering and navigating and dealing with like, unique situations that are maybe more complicated, or someone needs a lot more support at a certain time, stuff like that. But one of the interesting things I'll say that's like, because I think a lot of people, as we have people come up and chat with us and start using us, is they look at like, what can you do for the advisor? And is this like a virtual advisor? What's coming? But a lot of it actually turns out to be like with AI, there's both how smart the AI is, I'll say. But the other thing with AI is you can instantiate a whole bunch of these things in parallel, right? So you can have someone just looking at like personal things to worry about, right, for that client. You can have someone just looking at like, minimum distributions. You can have someone, because you can almost have like a team of 50 people, if you will, or 50 AI agents doing things. And I think people estimate the impact that that's going to have, because what that ultimately means is you can start to offer a ton of services for people at a fairly low cost, assuming those services are relatively straightforward, right? And what'll happen is the AI will get smarter and smarter, and then they'll be able to deal with like more advanced, taxes and estates and everything else. But, you'll start to see that more and more.
Yeah, I think that's a really, from like a technical standpoint, I think that's a really good way to kind of look at ways that I think a number of firms are probably looking to solve the problem, right? Having these specialized agents that are doing things like, I'm focused specifically on RMDs, focused specifically on tax efficiency in terms of trading, I'm focused, or tax loss harvesting, right? I'm focused on these very specific things. And then they bring that information together for a true wealth management, financial planning sort of perspective, and present all that to the advisor so that they have a really well-informed decision that can update essentially in real time as needed. I think that's a really interesting kind of way to explain it for those who aren't familiar with kind of like agents and how these things can work.
Yeah, I think it's cute that you think that we're going to be setting our own goals in the future and AI won't just tell us what to do, and then we'll just be following blindly.
Like we'll still have autonomy, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it's cute that you think we're going to have autonomy.
That's my little innocence going through.
Yeah. Well, I think I like the nudges idea, having, these AI agents providing nudges to take care of things.
Yeah.
And I think that will be automated to some extent, even with the human advisor in the loop. Yeah, I mean, my best of LinkedIn is this Joe Moss post, and it's actually links off to a Substack. So I'm actually going to be reading from the Substack. It talks about this company called Jump. I don't know if you've heard of them, Mark. I'll actually share that one of the top pages on Knapsack is this page called Jump versus Zocks, who wins the AI meeting note-taking game. Spoiler alert, it's neither. Ultimately, it's actually...
Was it an AI generated page? No,
I was heavily involved in writing this page. And so, yeah. So let me go ahead and read through this, and I'd love your take. So
yeah.
This is from Joe Moss. Jump is, in fact, building a CRM, aka AI plus CRM plus financial planning, part 3. An advisor recently asked me, besides the meeting note takers, where do you see AI having the biggest impact in the industry over the next few years? Would we all like to know? Recently, I attempted to capture all the AI note takers for advisors along with their feature sets. Since publishing the list of 26, at least 3 more have messaged me that I hadn't heard of before. There are too many already. Come on. So I'm trying to figure out, where does this go next? I've been thinking basically 2 ways, AI native CRMs or AI centralized brain overlay. But then I saw Jump's rebrand and found this little gem, and he basically has a note about Jump giving a central source of truth. Jump has a context database, but even more interesting, they're calling it a central source of truth. Okay, it's a CRM, albeit a light one, but maybe that's a good thing. And let's see, he has an image for AI note takers going to AI native CRMs, going to AI CRM and financial planning. We have to be descriptive here for the people in their cars. You see, if I had to pick between some brand new AI native CRM and a CRM brain overlay, I'd choose the native one. Everybody's complaining about the tech nonsense bloat in this industry. From the back of his book, he has a quote. He has a bunch of quotes about this, which we don't have to go into. So there might be a better way. It's called an all-in-one. I don't just mean the whole best-in-class versus all-in-one, but more like what John Sweisten says, the whole thing needs a rethink. This is a quote we mentioned in a previous podcast. There's data that needs to be gathered. There are meetings to be scheduled. There are financial plans to be created, accounts to be opened, billing to be done, emails to be drafted, all things that AI is becoming very helpful with. And so then he goes on talking about how, there's almost inevitable that, what's traditionally been categorized note taker will eventually become a CRM, going beyond AI assistance. And so we talked in a previous episode about systems of record and systems of action. I don't know if you've actually heard that framing before. And so really my question is Zocks building a CRM? Are you going to become a system of record? And, how do you see CRMs building note-taking capability, Hazel emerging as something that is a system of record? Jason calls it the ultimate system of record in a recent post, but also having that capability. What's your take on that?
I think this was the longest version of a question to get to. Mark, are you building a CRM? I don't know if it was to
I had
mask
to ramp
it
up
in
to
there.
it. I can't just come
It was
out.
good. You had a good build.
Mark.
You had a good build, Mark. You had a good build.
Yeah.
So we're not building a CRM directly. And I'll just start with, I think when you say CRM, that means very different things to very different people. And I would also say, even probably more importantly and more specifically, CRMs in financial services serve a lot of very specific purposes that are different from like CRMs in what I'll say normal land, right? The rest of the world. Like normally it's like a bunch of people you can contact, you can send them a bunch of emails, you can do all these things, right? And CRMs and financial services do that too. They're typically in books and records. They're very often used for compliance. They're very often used as an integration hub for things. And so, I think, we know advisors today who don't use CRM, frankly, right? Like they use like eMoney or something to put the plans in, and they use like email and the spreadsheet, and they're kind of good. But in CRM, so was it like probably 15, 20 years ago, like we're not actually super common in financial services, like they really have spread in that time. So, we're not building one for a whole bunch of reasons, which I'm happy to chat about. The data that we have access to and the profiles that we build up on clients are quite rich, right? Like I think that's there. And I think the fact that in our world, because we can do these things, right? Like we have rich context on clients, you can query across them and things like that. There are some things that I think people used to associate or still associate with CRMs that they may associate with us. I think your other question is at least for me, a little more interesting, which is like Wealthbox has announced their Notetaker. I don't think it's out yet. I've read a little bit on Hazel, like Altruist announcement. I haven't seen that yet at all in any specifics, but like, I guess in our view, one of the things that I've noticed across the industry for a long time, and this has happened across tech as well, is like everyone kind of assumes they're the master system of record. And that's because it's kind of like their view of the world, right? And so like when you go into an actual RIA and you say, is Schwab your system of record? It's actually not, right? They almost always have other custodians they're working with. If you talk to the marketing person or the advisor, they may view the CRM system as it, or, if you go talk to an insurer, they view the policy system as it. And I think what we see is it's actually almost always these systems have unique depth in their own right? Like there's really cool stuff in Redtail that probably is in no other system. If you go into, like Osaic's kind of like home CRM system as an example of larger broker dealer or Cambridge's or any of these, they have different, even though they're both CRMs, they have different data than the advisors have in their CRM. And, the custodians have their own and the planning systems have their own and, Orion and Black Diamond have their own, and they all kind of view themselves as like the master system. I won't say they all do, but a lot of them do. And the notion that you want AI, like if I owned any of those systems today, I would absolutely be investing in AI. There's no reason you wouldn't. It'd be pretty crazy not to. But the notion that like by doing that, like, that the other systems will become subservient to you, I think is probably not realistic given what we've seen historically, right? So that's a bit of a long answer.
Isn't email the only real system of record? It feels like it's the only immutable system and is where
unless you're
everything comes
texting
from,
or
right?
unless you're calling people. Yeah, like it's just everyone. And again, like with certain clients, certain advisors, certain clients, certain firms,
Right.
certain systems are definitely a lot richer than others. But we see some advisors, because we can pull from email, we can pull from Orion, we can pull from planning, we can pull from CRM. Same advisor, right? Some clients, all the data's in email. Right. Other clients, all the data's in the CRM system, right? Or, it's their holdings. And it's just also what that client wants to talk about, right? If they want to talk about their personal life and everything else, none of that stuff's sitting in Orion. If they really want to talk about their assets and what happened over the last 6 months, that's all sitting there, right? I think we've just seen this, like I've seen this a lot. And frankly, working at Microsoft for a long time, which like, for a long time had the goal of being the master system of everything. It's just a system. Like, it almost never becomes true. And so I think when someone is like, we're going to do this and it's going to fully do this, it's very much from like their point of view in the sense of like, I'm at the center of, of the world. And as long as I have all the data, I can do anything out, anything for the advisor. And just, we almost never see it play out.
Yeah. So one thing, living here in the Bay Area, I get invited to AI dinner parties. This is the kind of thing that happens. Maybe you get invited to these too, Mark. And so I recently at one of these, someone was talking about how systems of action will be commoditized a lot more quickly than systems of record because, it's very easy for a ChatGPT or a Gemini or a Copilot to actually, replicate functionality, but it's harder to replicate actual core data. And so, how would you, first of all, do you agree with that, Mark?
That the systems of actions will, that they will get replaced quicker? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, it's just going to be a lot more competitive, right? Because there's no ongoing moat. You basically are talking about functionality. And so it's just, do you have a series of agents working? Yes, no. Over time, people will build those. And then...
I kind of agree and disagree in the sense of like if you take a lot of this discussion or anything you read online and you replace AI with software, which it is, all of this starts to kind of become a little more clear. And like at the beginning of software, there was no stickiness because everything was brand new. Right? And I think that's the situation we're in right now with AI, right? Like to your point, you can take an agent, you can plop it on a piece of data and, you can probably get an agent working like my agent, in not too long.
Right.
What'll happen over time is there's going to be more existing workflows. There's going to be more data flowing and access to that. And especially I would say in financial services where both the security, privacy, and just like, frankly, the regulations around that data is very locked down. I think it'll be a little trickier than people think to get them moving. And the other huge thing I've seen with AI, which I'm sure you've both seen as well, is like demos are really easy to get going, which is really cool. And it is very hard to put that in production across like hundreds of thousands of people using the same system reliably. Like those two things are very different. Whereas with like kind of, normal procedural software, it was a lot closer. Like once it worked, if it worked for one person, you could run it 10,000 times and it would work for 10,000 people, more often than not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, anytime someone brings up commoditization, I think they're undervaluing brand and reliability.
Yeah. And just the cost of moving right? Like it is like advisors want to be working with clients. They don't want to be like, researching software and migrating and stuff. And, you can like just bluntly look at CRM systems. There are some CRM systems I will describe as not new that people are using. And when you ask them, they're not in love with them. and they stay on them because they're just like, they can't
Are
move.
you
But I
talking
agree,
about
brand.
Salesforce, but you don't want to burn your bridges with
I'm not,
Salesforce? Is that what's
I'm
happening?
not talking about Salesforce.
Do you want to name names? We don't want to name names. Okay.
No,
We'll move on.
everyone loves their CRM except for a few people that we
Every
work with. Yeah.
CRM is different and unique in its own special way.
They're all wonderful and very special, and their parents love them.
Exactly.
I want to bring us a little bit towards a close. I think we're probably at the tail end of this. So let's get into some predictions here. Mark, I want to ask you, moving forward, I think we all reference the Kits' map quite frequently, and I'm curious, with the proliferation of AI, where are you thinking we're going? Are we going to see lots of consolidation? Are we going to see lots of new entrants? What's it going to mean for just the overall wealth tech landscape?
That's a good. I think the answer to that is unfortunately both. I do think you're going to see consolidation across core systems. Like, even ignoring AI, this industry does that all the time, right? Like, it kind of buys in, it consolidates, it chugs in, and so you're going to kind of see the biggies eat up the new entrants, if you will, that are adding real value. But I think the other nice thing with AI and just the way that everything is going is you will see new capabilities come onto that map with software that just wasn't there before, right? Like, just things that advisors couldn't do that now they have access to because of that. And so I think you will see, like, maybe this is the way to describe it. If you froze everyone on the Kitsis map today and said, we're not adding anyone new, and you fast forward 3 years, I think there's less logos on the map, right? Like, they start to glom together. Some will fail, but they'll start to glom together.
Yeah.
But you'll start to see people, coming in the edges, and you'll start to see these new boxes, just like we saw Notetaking or something, right? That start to come out in areas that are new capabilities. Because advisors are just spending a ton of time, like, we work with them every day. Like, they just spend a ton of time on stuff that you're like, oh my gosh, software could help with a lot of these things. And so I think, there's a ton we're trying to do, but there's a lot of other stuff, and we see cool new apps all the time come out. So I know it's hard because, like, a lot of advisors want to get to, like, I just want to know the thing and I want it all to be together, so I don't have to deal with like 50 different vendors, which I 100% get. People don't want to move data around. But on the flip side, people also, where they can, will use specific things to help them grow their business more quickly or serve their clients better. And those will almost always be new entrants.
So speaking of that, I mean, if someone is listening and getting into the mode of trying to vet AI assistants or vet, Notetakers, whatever category they're using, what advice would you give them? What process do you recommend they use? Do you recommend they, try 3 simultaneously and compare the quality? Should they just go online and buy Zocks with their credit card right away and not talk to anyone else? But what specifically do you see as best practice for, purchasing this kind of thing?
I would definitely recommend trying a few. And the other thing I would recommend is, like, if you've never used AI before, sometimes, like, the newness of AI, we kind of joke, it's like we're all riding horses and someone invented the cars. So if you see 2 or 3 cars, it's really hard to tell the difference because they're all amazing compared to this horse I'm sitting on. Try them out, kind of get used to them, and get used to, just as you were mentioning, Mark, like, the brand, the service, just work with the companies and see who and what works for you. It's very easy to see something and be like, oh, that could be really neat, I'll try it. And, like, our view is AI is frankly going to change a lot of the economics of this industry very quickly. Like, when I say very quickly, years, but like in financial services terms, that's very quickly. And you probably want someone in your office, your firm, using a few of these things and just really understanding, like, what can they do, what could be useful today. Assume all these things got 50% better in the next year or two. Like, what could they do then? Those types of things, and really understand it. Just like, again, to my other analogy, in the pre-software world, I would kind of recommend people try software a little bit and see what's there, because it's going to be very hard to operate firms without it. And, and it's going to hit quicker than people think, a lot of it.
Yeah. So, Mark, where can people either see you in person or see some of your team and maybe get a demo of Zocks as we're going through the rest of conference season? Obviously, the Zocks website, but we're coming to a close on at least the September conference season.
Yes.
So where can people find you?
We have a lot. So the Zocks website's always there. You can always book some time with us. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not always the fastest responder on LinkedIn, but I do get to them all. Happy to chat with people there. We were just at Future Proof. We were at Mosaic this week. We were at Carson last week, Advisors Excel as well. And then, so coming up, we have quite a lot. XYPN is later next week. So for anyone on that, that's awesome. Bob Harris Insider is, I think, next week as well.
23rd to 25th, New Orleans.
Yeah, we have, if anyone's working with Raymond James as a hybrid, we have a conference there in a few weeks. We have quite a lot. And if you're unsure, just actually go to the website and ask, hey, are you going to be at any of these things? Because we do find a lot of people. It's very helpful to go work and just meet people kind of in person, give them demos, even set them up and get them going. And often we say this a lot, right? Like over half the questions we get actually have almost nothing to do with Zocks. It's really just more of like, how should I be thinking about AI and privacy and security and stuff like that? And those are great conversations to have if you're ever at a show or at a conference. So yeah, quite a lot coming up.
And you're also going to be speaking at RA Edge, is that right?
Yeah, we're speaking at RA Edge. That's early October, mid-October.
Yeah, October 7th, I believe, is the day of your speech. So
yeah,
I'll be sitting in the audience.
Awesome. Well, come say hi before and after. Yeah, excited. We have a lot of exciting stuff coming up. There's a lot of really cool industry events coming on right now.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on our show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you too as well.
We love that I know we kind of referenced it, but we never talked about your podcast studio that you're joining us from.
This is my home office. I'm in a hotel that I asked for a quiet room for like an hour, and they're like, "Oh, we have a recording studio upstairs." So it's in Seattle. As you get it feels a very Seattle grunge background, but they put me in this, so it's kind of the coolest background I've probably ever had on a podcast.
It just shows that like podcasting has crossed the chasm, right? Because there's so many podcasters that they actually have to dedicate a room to a recording studio.
Yeah, totally.
Versus a gym. Like we don't need the gym anymore. We need podcasts.
Exactly.
We'll get rid of that.
Treadmills have been removed for the big mic and the
That's perfect. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Mark. It was a pleasure having you. We really enjoyed the conversation. Even the stuff we may or may not show in the beginning. We had a nice little chat at the beginning, but thanks so much.
Yeah,
really
appreciate it.
For coming
Appreciate
on
you both. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Take care.